Excellent. Okay, everybody, we are here with Don Argott and Sheena M. Joyce, and they are the creators behind the new docuseries on Showtime, Spectre. How are you guys?
We're good.
We're
Thanks for having
great.
us.
Thanks for having us.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so can you kind of give me the elevator pitch? Tell me about the show.
It's a four-part doc series about Phil Spector, specifically about looking back on his career and also the events that happened on February 3rd, 2003, in which Lana Clarkson, who he met at the House of Blues that night, came back to his house and was found dead. So there was obviously a lot of press coverage during when all this was happening, and there had been some documentaries and specials done about Phil Spector. And when we were approached to do kind of this multi-part doc series, for us, it was about, well, what's the angle that, hasn't been talked about before. People know about Phil Spector. They know, a lot of people knew about the murder. But I think it was a good time to kind of look back and also, kind of talk about Lana Clarkson, who was the victim, who's never really discussed and really became kind of a footnote in Phil's story as the B movie actress who had the audacity to go over to his house and found herself dead. What did she think was going to happen? It was like kind of that kind of victim blaming. And I think, and Sheena can certainly talk more to this as a woman, but I think that felt like new territory for us to explore and kind of dig in. And Sheen, you can kind of take it from
Yeah,
there.
I would just add it's true crime meets rock doc. So not only do we explore who Phil Spector was and his musical genius, but we get into his childhood and a lot more about his background, and show kind of these parallel paths that Phil Spector was on and Lana Clarkson was on, and then what caused them to intersect that night in 2003.
I love that angle. I love how that you guys approach that.
Thank
The
you.
Yeah, of course. The victim blaming to me is something that is particularly disturbing when all of that went down. How much do you go into that, and what how do you explore that?
We go into that a lot. I think any of us who were around when Phil was on trial can attest to the fact that Lana's name wasn't ever mentioned without B movie actress, comma Lana Clarkson before her name. So there was almost this narrative being told about her in how she was announced. So I felt very strongly that she wasn't afforded even the dignity in death that she deserved. So we kind of unpack how Phil's behavior over the decades was allowed to continue that kind of led the path to where they both ended up that night, and what it was like for Lana being a beautiful woman in Hollywood and what she had to deal with, and also the events that brought her to that night.
The were there any I don't know, things that you uncovered behind Phil Spector and his childhood and his past, or anything like that, that I wouldn't say excuse
Mhm.
anything,
No,
but
but maybe
that would,
contextualize.
yeah,
Yeah,
that would maybe explain or contextualize.
it was very important to us to not go into this with a kind of axe to grind about Phil Spector and trying to sorry, and trying to excuse his behavior in any way. But I do think it's important in anything like this, when you're afforded, kind of 4 hours to, kind of re-examine the lives of these two people, what were the circumstances that did lead Phil on a path. And I think, for us, clearly early on, when Phil was 9 years old, he grew up in the Bronx. His father committed suicide, self asphyxiated in a car, ran a hose into tailpipe into his window and asphyxiated himself. So that event, as anybody knows about, kind of children and suicide, I mean, that is a scarring, defining event in that person's life. And I think for Phil, and I think as Sheena said before, these events that, you know, kind of, you know, begin to happen, obviously, you know, and that when that happened, you know, Lana wasn't born yet, but it set Phil on a path. It took them from New York, it took the family from New York to Los Angeles to kind of like escape, you know, the what was left behind in New York, and they started kind of fresh in Los Angeles. And I think Phil went to Fairfax High School and kind of found his people in music, and he got very enamored with music and very became a very good, actually a good jazz guitar player. He's a very talented musician. And, you know, I think in high school, he ends up meeting, you know, two classmates who start a band together, the Teddy Bears, and Carol Connors, who's the singer in that band, that, you know, they have their first hit, To Know Him Is to Love Him, which was taken off of Phil's father's grave stone, and it said to know him was to love him. And then Phil just changed the line to know him, you know, is to love him. So I think like those, like getting into what made Phil Phil, and then obviously when you have fame and celebrity and you're a little potentially not all there mentally, you know, as you know, you would be in when you're young, and obviously dealing with mental illness in his family and his father's suicide. And when the hits start to become more frequent and he starts to become a big name, there's less people around him checking his bad behavior, saying like, hey, Phil, maybe don't pull guns out, maybe don't do this. You know, you surround yourself with a lot of people that enable you. And I think that was very much the case in Phil's, you know, in a big part of Phil's life. And then, you know, when you have, you know, a person who is being rewarded in a way for bad behavior, you know, why would they stop? Why would, you know, it's that's what we see that over and over. We're seeing it with Kanye West now. You know, these people that have, you know, become beloved as artists, as people that we, you know, have huge fan bases. There's definitely a tendency to let's not push Phil too much, because maybe his erratic behavior is what makes him make hits, and we don't want to mess that up. So like, let's just, you know, let's turn the other way when his behavior is outlandish. And I think
there's something about the entertainment industry and the arts in general where mental illness is excused as artistic genius, and that's certainly something that we get into in our series Spector.
Does that kind of I don't know, mentality, public mentality, do you think that that gives some sort of a, I don't know, responsibility to the fans, or the public in general about, you know, like Don was saying, you know, oh, don't address it, you know, because we might mess
What if
it
that's
up.
the secret sauce, right?
Yeah. Do you think that gives the public some sort of a responsibility or culpability?
I don't know that the public should be responsible or culpable for our celebrities' behavior. I think it just there's the question that I don't know will ever be answered, but we certainly address in the series, which is, can you separate the art from the artist? And I think that gets to what you're asking too, this personal responsibility. Like, do we listen to Michael Jackson now that we know about all the accusations? You know, do we watch Woody Allen films? Do we watch Kevin Spacey movies? You know, what is each person's personal responsibility? Are we somehow enabling the behavior by supporting the art?
Right.
And it's a sticky line that's, I think, different for everyone. I think in Phil's case, it's easier for us as the public to separate ourselves, because it's not like from Phil's actions and his art, because he wasn't the singer, he was the producer behind the scenes, he was the writer, he was the maestro orchestrating all these things. I think so it's easier for us to separate his deeds from his work. I don't know that I can answer what kind of a personal responsibility we as society at large have. I think we need to examine who we treat as heroes, and maybe stop dismissing real mental illness as artistic eccentricities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
But I think that also has a lot to do with the people, as Don, said, that you surround yourself with as a person. I think they bear more of the responsibility, certainly in Phil's case, than the general public in liking his music.
Absolutely. And going back and talking about Lana for a second, um, what was her history? Where did she come from? How did she end up there that night?
Well, in a real interesting, this is what's cool, not cool in terms of like what ended up happening, but as storytellers, when you find all these connective tissues that are really fascinating, that it's exactly what they are. They don't, it doesn't necessarily mean anything, but I do think, like, Lana, when she was young, her father was a miner and died in a tragic mining accident, and that event actually moved their family from Northern California, like in San Francisco area, to Los Angeles. And so, these tragedies that both these characters had in their lives led them on a path to, like, be in Los Angeles, for as random as all that is, like certainly Phil's family living in New York and then coming all the way across country to Los Angeles. And then, Lana's family, after that tragedy, moving to LA. And then within there, she, Lana kind of finds her way into modeling and doing some, kind of like small acting parts here and there. So, it's like those moments that in their lives that really kind of like that set them on a path that they would meet that night at the House of Blues. And I think the real tragedy, aside from the obvious, is, Lana was doing really well. And unfortunately, there was a Christmas party that she was at where she kind of fell, and to brace herself from her fall, she fell backwards. She broke both of her wrists. And that kind of put her out of commission, acting, getting her career back on track. And ultimately was the thing, after a year being out of work, needing to find a job, she went and applied and got the job at the House of Blues. So, you think about all these, like, these that happen, that lead you to a certain place that particular night. And so, for us being able to take that step back and look at it as a whole, it is really fascinating,
Yeah.
And there's this theme of timing that Phil talks about in his life that I think certainly applies to the events in our series as well. It's timing. It's, what if she hadn't broken her wrists? What if Lana didn't take that shift that night at the House of Blues? What if Phil hadn't gone off his meds, or combined alcohol with his medication? There's so many what ifs that brought them to that crossroads that night. And it really has to do with timing.
Yeah. Well, basically music, timing, and life itself, I guess.
Exactly.
So do you explore kind of the aftermath, the outcome of the trial? And
yes,
we certainly do. We were very lucky in that we got both the Spector family and the Clarkson family's participation.
Wow.
We spoke to the prosecution and the defense. We speak to the two lead detectives. We speak to the people who knew both Phil and Lana firsthand. So you really are getting firsthand information about these two characters. And we spend a lot of time with Phil's daughter, Nicole, and we talk to her about what it was like for her going through this and the aftermath of the trials, and her father's time in prison, and what his legacy, means to her, and how she sees it. And with the Clarkson family, with Lana's mother, Donna, and her closest friends. And we see how this event has affected their lives and how they remember Lana. So we do follow that thread all the way, up to the present.
Excellent. And how can people see this? New episodes come out on Showtime every
Yeah.
Sunday?
It's actually the fourth episode premiered this past Sunday, but everything is available on the Showtime app. You can watch all four episodes. It'll be on there forever. So take your time over the holidays and watch Spectre.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I really appreciate the approach that you guys took to the doc. The
Thank-
rock doc and true crime mix is a good definition for it. Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me.
Thanks
And
for having us.
best
Thanks
of
for
luck.
having us. Thank you.
Absolutely. Best of luck on this, and hope to see you again on your next project.
Thanks,
Thanks so much.
Appreciate
Really
it.
appreciate it. Take care.
Bye-bye.